Good morning, my dear students. Today's topic of discussion is gout. Gout is basically a metabolic disorder characterized by hyperuricemia, where the normal plasma urate level is varying from 2 to 6 milligram per dl, and uric acid, which is basically a product of purine metabolism, has low water solubility, especially at low pH. So, being a metabolic disorder, again, the kind of management we are taking to control a case of gout is basically maintenance therapy. A complete cure is probably not possible in case of gout. Obviously, the dose regulation as well as the kind of uh, food diet alteration and the other things you will do will be helpful for you to keep it under the control of uh, control of your uh, clinical parameters. So these are few of the sites where it's being shown. It's been characterized by bony erosions. There may be a deposition of tophi, which is basically a deposition of urate crystals in the form of tophus, and we can see this kind of things while we see the pictures in the following slides, and there will be the involvement of synovium. So the gout can be of two types. Usually the acute gouty arthritis, where you require a different kind of drugs, and there is chronic gout or chronic gouty arthritis. So uh, for both, for the different types of gout, you require a different kind of approach towards the management of gout. So as I mentioned before, these are the examples of acute and chronic gout. You just see usually the monoarticular involvement. There is a tophus, the redness, inflammation is showing characteristic of acute gout. And these the problem in the finger, these fingers are not straightened. So these are all characteristics of the chronic gout. Mostly the unilateral single joint involvement, monoarticular involvement is going to be the characteristic of gout. It is separating it from the other gout, other kind of arthritis or arthritic like disease. Now, one thing you just have to remember, even if the normal range is 2 to 6 milligram per dl, if a clinician thinks that patient is probably require medication due to some symptomatic changes, even at the level of 6, 6.2, or even less than 6, even 5.8, 5.6, clinician has all the right to start treatment. So it is ultimately depending on the clinician who has to correlate these laboratory findings of the plasma level or the blood level of uric acid with that of the clinical signs and symptoms. So how will we see this gout? How will we look at the course of the disease? We are looking at as the clinical manifestation being shown. We are seeing how the disease is being progressed, and we are also looking at the different risk factors which are probably causing the disease. So what are the different risk factors which are responsible for causing the disease? It is the genetic factors, mostly the autosomal recessive ones. So there is urate transporter genes which are responsible, the environmental factors, there is a diet. High protein diet is usually going to be restricted in case of gout. The especially for many of you, those who are not veg, I know that many of you are quite fond of red meat, but that things should be restricted. Even the pulses, in Bengali it's called dal, so that is also going to be restricted. because it has a high protein content. Impaired kidney function. Obviously, the cause of these uric acid high in uric acid concentration in blood at, can be divided into two parts. One is going to be the overproducers, those who are producing excessive of uric acid, and the second one is under excretors. That means the production is probably normal, but the excretion is less. So when you read pathology, you will know the 90% is probably going in favor of the under excretors, and the 10% probably the overproducers, or there are people who are having both. So those are probably the most difficult patients to treat. There is increasing age. Obviously, the gender is going in favor of male. Every time the male are going to be the victim more in comparison to female in case of these diseases. Even you will see in cardiovascular disease till the age of 45, the most of the cardiovascular diseases are occurring in male. The medications like thiazide, furosemide, these are diuretics. We'll discuss when we'll discuss cardiology. So those are basically acidic drugs. So they are blocking the acidic transporter system of uric acid, and therefore they are increasing the concentration of uric acid in the blood. High cell turnover states. Besides this, there are reduced solubility of urate, increased nucleation of MSU crystals, and the growth of MSU crystals. These reduced solubility of urate it will lead to MSU crystal deposition. If you see the progression of the disease, usually there is normouricemia at the beginning, then it leads to hyperuricemia, followed by the crystal deposition, MSU crystal deposition, and that may ultimately lead to the chronic gouty arthritis and tophaceous gout. Following this, you will see the parameters like acute inflammatory response, and it is deposited in the MSU crystals, and you will see the redness, the monoarticular joint involvement, especially in the foot. So this is quite a characteristic clinical feature of gout. When you see a patient of gout, you must have a look at this site. The chronic granulomatous inflammatory response to deposited crystals also may lead to chronic gouty arthritis. So the clinical manifestation will start from no disease to asymptomatic state, where you will see the patient may be having hyperuricemia. Even till the range of 8 milligram per DL, you may not give any treatment in this case. You just go for diet restriction. And there will be MSU crystal deposition. Then comes the symptomatic disease, where probably the patient is having acute gouty arthritis, and where one prescription is being shown to you, where we have prescribed naproxen, and to combat the adverse drug reaction of naproxen, we have also prescribed pantoprazole. Basically, naproxen was the therapy, which is a kind of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, just to minimize inflammation and pain. And symptomatic disease with complications. When the patient is symptomatic, the disease, and we tackle the acute conditions, patient is having the chronic gouty arthritis, you have to prescribe some drugs, and those drugs are either allopurinol or febuxostat. So we'll come to the drugs later. Next slide, we'll see something different. So the cause obviously, or the thing obviously, is hyperuricemia, but as I said, many of the times patient may present it with the symptoms with normouricemia at the very beginning of the stage, and if the clinician is quite confident, they can start early treatment so that the patient will get relief from the clinical signs and symptoms. And the uric acid under secretors are 80 to 90%, the idiopathic one, where the overproducers are only 10 to 20%. There is, in case of primary hyperuricemia, we'll see there is a deficiency of AGPRT enzymes, and this deficiency is pretty common, and PRPP synthase overactivity is also common in case of primary hyperuricemia. So these are the pathophysiology which we are encountering in case of primary hyperuricemia. Whereas in case of secondary hyperuricemia and gout with identifiable associated condition, we used to see that they, the gout is basically developing from some other causes. So the cause may be lymphoma, maybe some kind of cancer, the leukemia, the blood cancer, maybe kind of chemotherapy which is being prescribed for the treatment of cancer. So, there are diuretics, as I mentioned before, like thiazide and furosemide, ethacrynic acid. They are blocking the uh, secretion of uric acid in the proximal tubule. The same is true for chemotherapeutic agents also. Some disorders like diabetic ketoacidosis, which may lead to this kind of conditions, lead poisoning, hemolytic anemia, psoriasis. So these are all may be, even psoriasis is a kind of metabolic disorder, so it may be associated with secondary hyperuricemia. And there is a dual mechanism where you can see the obesity, hypoxemia, hyperperfusion are probably responsible for causing this. But rather than secondary hyperuricemia, being undergraduate student, we are primarily focusing on primary hyperuricemia, and where we are talking on the undersecretors, the overproducers, both the idiopathic ones, people which are having HGPRT deficiency, and PRPP synthase overactivity. In case of secondary hyperuricemia, you have to treat the cause. If you treat the cause, the gout is automatically under control. So let's go back to the biochemistry. As we know, the basic pathway of the synthesis of uric acid from purine to hypoxanthine, from hypoxanthine to xanthine. So this is the retrievating stream. This is caused by xanthine oxidase enzyme. This is catalyzed by this enzyme. This is basically a kind of non-microsomal enzyme which we have discussed in general pharmacology. So in this case, we can see genetic polymorphism, which is quite common, which can be observed with this kind of things, and enzyme induction is not possible in case of this kind of enzymes. So these two are the part of general pharmacology or part of biotransformation, which you should know related to this. And it is not only preventing the step of from hypoxanthine to xanthine, rather it is also preventing the second, inducing the second step from xanthine to uric acid. So whatever the drug you will prescribe, they will block both the steps, the allopurinol and febuxostat. Both of them are usually used in chronic gout, not in acute gout, which was been shown in your prescription. So if the patient is under control, you can prescribe this kind of xanthine oxidase and inhibitors like allopurinol or febuxostat. Out of this, due to different reasons, febuxostat is nowadays preferred over allopurinol in clinical practice. But allopurinol is a traditional drug. It is cost effective, it is less costly, but if patient can afford, you will always prescribe febuxostat in case of chronic gout. Always remember, whenever we are talking about these two drugs, we are talking about chronic gout. So there is an increase in uric acid in the concentration in the blood. Mostly it is more than 6, but if you take out most of the patients, you will see that the clinical features, the pain and this kind of tophus formation, redness, this will occur when it crosses the limit of 8 milligram per dl usually. But sometimes it, as I said, it may start even below 6. Now this will react with sodium, the sodium crystals which are called tophi deposited in the soft tissue and joints, which are being shown in the previous slides, and this is inflammatory in nature. So the inflammation occurs. This inflammation will ultimately infiltration of granulocyte and the phagocytize the urate crystals. Ultimately, this will lead to generation of the free radicals. The free radical will damage the tissue, and then it will release the proteolytic enzyme that is called glycoprotein. And this release of proteolytic enzyme glycoprotein will release lactic acid, and therefore more precipitation of urate crystals. Not only that, proteolytic enzyme will also release the lysosomal enzymes, and there will be destruction of joints, as was been shown in the previous 1 or 2 slides. So this is basically the pathophysiology of the gout, whether it's acute or chronic in nature. And these are the steps where these drugs are going to be effective. The indomethacin is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, just like naproxen. So naproxen, indomethacin will act here. They will block here. They will give relief from gout, in acute gout, by acting on the inflammation. So this will reduce pain, this will reduce redness, swelling, and all these things. The colchicine will prevent the infiltration of granulocytes, and that phagocytose the urate crystals. Colchicine will also prevent the release of proteolytic enzyme glycoprotein. And colchicine, thirdly, will also prevent the release of lactic acid, and therefore the more precipitation of urate crystals will be prevented. So these drugs are very much effective in case of acute gout. Repeatedly I am saying these drugs are effective in acute gout, though colchicine is acting on 3 steps, this step followed by this step, and this is the last step, whereas indomethacin is only acting on the initial step, that is the inflammatory step. But both of them are acting on acute gout. Whereas in the previous slide, we have shown allopurinol and febuxostat. Those are very much effective in case of chronic gout. So how will we approach? We will approach these cases to decrease the symptoms of an acute attack, and we will do it by non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Sometimes we prefer colchicine, but colchicine is having a little bit of problem. I will discuss it a little bit later. It causes vomiting, so that is a big problem with colchicine. And low dose glucocorticoid, if it is not controlled with the previous 2 drugs, then low dose glucocorticoids can be prescribed for 7 days to minimize the symptoms of acute gout. Glucocorticoids are prednisolone, then your methylprednisolone, deflazacort. So these type of drugs can be used. The second way of our management therapy, or our goal of therapy, is to decrease the risk of recurrent attacks, and to even prevent that, we are using the same drugs, the NSAIDs, that is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which include naproxen, which include indomethacin. These 2 are the primary drugs. Many other drugs also can be used, and colchicine. So this is the second way. The third way, we are trying to now keep it under control by lowering serum urate level when the patient is probably suffering from chronic gout. So the drugs which will decrease production by inhibiting xanthine oxidase enzymes are allopurinol and febuxostat, whereas those which will increase excretion are probenecid and benchbromarone. So these are the drugs which are used in chronic gout. But out of that, if you want to ask me which one would you prefer, sir, as a clinician, I will always say febuxostat and allopurinol. We are very rarely using probenecid or benchbromarone like drug. Now let's come to colchicine. How the colchicine is prescribed? Colchicine is usually prescribed 20 tablets, and each tablet of colchicine is containing 0.5 milligram. Now 2 tablets to be taken immediately, followed by 1 tablet every 2 hours until relief of pain is obtained or vomiting or diarrhea results. So that is the prescription of colchicine in case of acute gout. Again I am repeating. So you have to prescribe 20 tablets, each tablet containing 0.5 milligram 2 tablets to be taken immediately, followed by 1 tablet every 2 hours until relief of pain is obtained or vomiting or diarrhea results. So, from the direction you can understand that the vomiting or diarrhea is probably one of the problematic thing in case of colchicine. It is an alkaloid obtained from Colchicum autumnale, and this Colchicum autumnale is the source of colchicine. So it's basically an alkaloid, as I said, and you just see the spelling is end with INE. This INE stands for alkaloid. Spelling of atropine is also INE. So that is indicating the source is alkaloid. Morphine is also INE. So it is an anti-inflammatory agent. It does not possess antipyretic and analgesic action. As an anti-inflammatory agent, it provides dramatic relief of acute attacks of gout or arthritis. It can be used in acute attack of gout along with allopurinol or uricosurics at the initial stage, as prophylactic measures in gout during the asymptomatic period, both preoperatively and postoperatively in gouty arthritis patient. It can also be used in alcoholic liver disease, recurrent idiopathic pericarditis, and cutaneous vasculitis. The adverse effects are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, hemorrhagic gastroenteritis, and nephrotoxicity. But out of that, as you can understand from the very direction of the prescription, nausea, vomiting is probably the commonest of the side effects from the series. The colchicine is available as tablet of 0.5 milligram or even 0.6 milligram are available. It is also available in the injectable form. The oral medication is as effective as intravenous administration, but GI side effects can be avoided by giving IV injections. But IV injections has its own problems. As you know, the chance of toxicity is higher. The other toxicity can be occurred with the IV injections. Colchicine is used along with allopurinol or any uricosuric drug at the initial stage to prevent precipitation of acute attack, because sudden decrease in the serum uric acid level promotes mobilization of urate from affected joints to the blood, which may affect other non-affected joints. So that is the reason why allopurinol alone is not prescribed or it is contraindicated in case of acute gout. Allopurinol, which is basically a drug used traditionally in case of chronic gout, is almost the drug of choice in a country like us, though we are talking about febuxostat, and we know it's an inhibitor of xanthine oxidase, and it is responsible for decreasing uric acid synthesis as it is blocking xanthine oxidase in the sequential step. So this is basically a hypoxanthine analog and basically synthesized as a purine antimetabolite for cancer chemotherapy. But later on it is being developed as a drug of choice in case of chronic gout. Allopurinol itself is a short acting drug of around 2 hours. It is a competitive inhibitor of xanthine oxidase. So competitive inhibition is very important, and that part is again related to general pharmacology, where you have an idea, you got an idea about competitive antagonism and non-competitive antagonism. Its major metabolite of allopurinol is alloxanthine, that is oxypurin, have a long acting, that is it has a half-life of 24 hours, and that part, this metabolite, is a non-competitive inhibitor. So that is the problem of giving allopurinol. Itself it's a competitive, but its active metabolite, which is also effective, that is alloxanthine, is a non-competitive inhibitor, and this alloxanthine is primarily responsible for uric acid synthesis inhibition. During allopurinol administration, plasma concentration of uric acid is reduced and that of hypoxanthine and xanthine is somewhat increased. In place of uric acid alone, all three oxypurines are excreted in urine. Now, since this xanthine and hypoxanthines are more soluble, have a higher renal clearance than that of uric acid, and each has its individual solubility, precipitation and crystallization in tissues and urine does not occur. But as I mentioned before, alone these kind of drug like allopurinol should not be used in case of acute gout, because in case of acute gout at the initial stage you have to prevent precipitation of acute attack, and there will be sudden decrease in the serum uric acid level which promotes mobilization of urate from affected joints to the blood, which may affect other non-affected joints. So that is the reason why allopurinol is almost in that sense contraindicated with in case of acute gout. Obviously, you can prescribe after 7 days of giving drugs like naproxen or indomethacin or colchicine when the acute problem is under control. In gout, in chronic gout it is indicated. In acute gout, alone allopurinol is contraindicated. Allopurinol may interact with different drugs. As we have already discussed about drug interaction, we know that probenecid can be given with allopurinol and has a complex interaction. While probenecid shortens the T half of the alloxanthine, allopurinol prolongs the T half of probenecid. So that can be sometimes, it is not going to be that much beneficial for the patient in that sense. It inhibits the degradation of 6-mercaptopurine and azathioprine, which are immunosuppressants. I have mentioned azathioprine in context of myasthenia gravis. Their doses should be reduced to 1/3 because these drugs are used in cancer as immunosuppressants, but not that of the thioguanine, because it follows a different metabolite path, S-methylation path. So in case of 6-mercaptopurine and azathioprine, the doses should be reduced to 1/3 if you co-prescribe it with allopurinol, because it inhibits the degradation of those drugs. It has its adverse drug reactions. These are not very uncommon. Hypersensitivity reaction may occur. Rash I have seen multiple times in the clinical practice. So skin rash is very common. So you can replace it with febuxostat. It should not be restarted in these patients. Serious reactions may follow. Stevens-Johnson syndrome like skin reactions may occur. So you must be very, very cautious if a person is presenting with any kind of problem like this. Ideally, it is the first choice drug in chronic gout, but it can be used in both overproducers and under-excretors of uric acid. The more severe cases with tophi and nephropathy also respond very well to drug like allopurinol. Urics are not frequently used in India. They are less effective when GFR is low and are inappropriate in stone formers. So the two classes of drugs, the uricosurics and synthesis inhibitors, can be used together when the body load of urate is large. Allopurinol therapy is generally long term. Obviously, it is given in chronic gout, maybe lifetime. During prolonged allopurinol therapy, tophi disappear gradually and the nephropathy is halted or even reversed. Now, secondary hyperuricemia due to cancer chemotherapy, radiation, thiazide or other drug can be controlled by allopurinol. It can even be used prophylactically in these situations. Allopurinol can also be used to potentiate 6-mercaptopurine and azathioprine, as it is preventing the degradation of the drug. And in cancer chemotherapy and immunosuppressants, lesser dose of mercaptopurine and azathioprine can be effective, and it would reduce the toxicity of those drugs. The next one is the newer one, and it's a non-purine xanthine oxidase inhibitor. It is as good as allopurinol in terms of efficacy, if not better, and it is lowering blood uric acid level in patients with hyperuricemia and gout. It is rapidly absorbed orally, the highly plasma protein bound, oxidized as well as glucuronide conjugated in the liver and excreted by kidney. Hypersensitivity reactions are rare in febuxostat, so that is one advantage over allopurinol. That is the reason why we are preferring this. It should be stopped if they occur. The most important adverse effect is the liver damage. Diarrhea, nausea and headache may occur with this. Mostly it is causing a kind of competitive inhibition, which is also a little bit different from allopurinol, though allopurinol is also causing competitive inhibition, but the non-competitive inhibition can be caused by its active metabolite. It is an alternative drug to allopurinol. Ideally, it should not be combined with allopurinol. These can be given sequentially in case of intolerance. That means if the tolerance develop, non-responsiveness to any one of these drugs. It is not indicated in malignancy associated hyperuricemia. Like other drugs used to treat hyperuricemia, NSAID, colchicine cover should be provided for 1 to 2 months while indicating febuxostat therapy. And usually we are preferring a dose of 40 to 80 milligram once or twice daily. Probenecid is basically interfering with renal tubular handling of organic acid, prolongation and elevation of beta-lactam. That means the penicillin-like drug is occurring. So it's a very good drug if you want to increase the half-life of penicillin. Risk of gout attacks during the early months of therapy is there with probenecid because there is a chance of tissue urate mobilization. It is ineffective totally in case of patients with renal insufficiency. There is a new one which is basically derived via recombinant technology. It's a recombinant uricase, and that is known as pegloticase and rasburicase. Now, pegloticase is a recombinant uricase, the enzyme which oxidizes uric acid to highly soluble allantoin, and that is easily excreted by kidney. Humans lack this enzyme. In this preparation, the enzyme has been coupled with methoxy polyethylene glycol, which serves to prolong its sojourn in the body. It is permitting IV infusion of the drug and to be given every 2 weeks. It is indicated only in rare case of refractory symptomatic gout. Just like steroids, the steroids are also given in case of acute refractory gout to NSAIDs, that means non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and the drugs like colchicine. So like steroid, it is also given in refractory cases. And this pegloticase is immunogenic. It carries high risk of infusion reaction, including anaphylaxis. So it should be administered only by the medical professionals in a setup where you can manage anaphylaxis with adrenaline and the other medications. So due to the formation of antibodies, the response is gradually decreased in many of the patients. Whereas the rasburicase is using to manage the elevated plasma uric acid levels in pediatric and adult patients with leukemia, lymphoma and solid tumor malignancies. And there probably the people are receiving anti-cancer therapy, so this is probably given in case of secondary hyperuricemia. It is expected to result in tumor lysis and significant hyperuricemia. So in secondary hyperuricemia, you can use this kind of drug like rasburicase, or you can use any one of this in case of refractory gout. So with this, I am concluding my presentation on gout. Thank you so much.